Bala sir, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Sir.
Hello, Amardeep sir. Anand Raj here.
Yes, hello.
Yeah, hi sir. So
Hi.
shall we wait for a few minutes and then we'll start, sir? Is it
No
okay?
problem, my friend. No problem.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, sir, shall we start?
Yes, we can start.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Very good evening to everyone present over here. I welcome one and all for this third day of our faculty development program on the topic exploring entrepreneurship and startup opportunities. Today's topic is minimum viable product, and I'm profusely overjoyed to take this opportunity to introduce our resource speaker, Mr. Amardeep Bajpai, founder of Webistorm. Amardeep Bajpai is a digital marketing expert and founder of Webistorm Group of Companies, which he founded in the year of 2009. He has completed his MBA from Asia's best business school, Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. He started his career at the Stock Exchange Board of India as a consultant to a SEBI director in the year 2006, after which he joined PwC India as a consultant. He then went on to plan successful award-winning marketing campaigns for several unicorns such as Policy Bazaar, Make My Trip, Ask Me Bazaar, etc. He is active in national and international forums like HT Leadership Summit, AdTech, and Arab Media Forums, etc. He has also won several awards such as the Smarties Mobile Marketing Awards 2015 for the first mobile browsing marketing campaign ever created with Opera Mini web browser. It gives me immense pleasure to have you for this session, sir. Once again, I welcome you all for this today's session. With no more further delay, I'm handing over the session to our resource speaker, Mr. Amardeep Bajpai. Sir, over to you.
Yes. Yeah. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session on MVP. This will be more of an interactive session, so you can feel free to talk and interrupt me at any point of time with your queries. The idea is that after this session, you should leave with this feeling that you have kind of learned something about MVP, and you can use it actually in building your next venture or something like that. In case any point is not clear, again feel free to ping me to tell your queries and so on and so forth. Also, I would like to thank Anand here and college authorities for inviting me for this session. And I'm also happy to see a fairly large attendance here. So, welcome all of you. And I hope you find this session useful. I'm more used to teaching in scenarios which are, face to face, because my style of talking and my style of teaching is more towards interaction with people, but because of this COVID scenario, most of us are not able to kind of uh, meet and do a physical session. So we'll have to kind of make up with that, but as I told you, I'll be happy, and in case you want to interrupt at any point of time, you fail to understand any uh, concept which I'm telling you, anything of that sort, feel free to kind of budge me at any point of time, and I'll be happy to answer your queries there. So that's like the basic kind of a background to the whole thing. Now, coming back to MVP, my question would have been to all of you, that and you can write it in the chat box as to how you think, what do you understand, and what do you think is an MVP. That's actually my first kind of question back to you. Anyone who wants to attempt it can speak up, or can essentially write in the chat box for everyone to see. I hope I'm being audible to everyone.
Yes, sir.
So what is kind of a minimum viable product according to you? No, glad. I can see some chats which are saying that MVP is minimum viable product. This is wonderful. What is your understanding of minimum viable product? Okay, very nice. So somebody has Anand has written initial version of a product. Okay, initial version of a product. This is very nice, and I think this forms a basis for this discussion. The initial version of a product. Now, initial version of a product can be can be very interesting to think about. Okay, so first, before we get into MVP and the initial version of the product, and explore this definition a little more, let's kind of go back a little and see where these discussions are coming from. So largely, these discussions are coming from the fact that uh, we are there is a startup explosion which is happening across the globe. So a lot of companies, a lot of people, lot of young people, old people, everyone actually is trying to get into this startup bandwagon. Now, one of the key things in startups is a product. Okay, and what we have started doing is that we have started putting up this word um, for everything which goes initially as an MVP, and that's the so because there are these startups which are happening, and there is this opportunity around all of us. That's why MVPs have gained that much more significance, because anybody with a computer has now an opportunity to earn $1 billion. That's how it is, right? So and if you have that opportunity, why should you not use it? So because there are so many startups, so there are these building blocks of a startup. So an MVP becomes like a building block of startup. There are, for an entrepreneur, or for a company to think of a new venture, they can, the best way for them to actually think through is that, do I need to build something? If I build something, then how do I think about building it? So that first thought about that, how your product or service, actually this is also very interesting. Like I told you, that the concept of MVP is coming from the fact that you can build something. You can build something which is bigger, which is like scalable, which can be used by a lot of people. All of that. That core thought is there in your mind, and that can be something which is useful, right? So because that core thought is there, what you start doing is that you start thinking about a initial kind of a minimum product, which can become interesting, or which can become like your starting point. Okay. Now, why this is critical is because you can take this product and then you can scale it. And maybe today, say 100 people use it, or one person uses it. Tomorrow, millions of people will use it. And that's when the company or the venture or this whole thing will become bigger and more useful, more impactful, maybe $1 billion. That's the kind of the core thought. And with this thought, there is this concept of minimum viable product which started coming. Okay. Now, lot of people now, they think MVP as so say suppose I have the idea of a car, for example. Okay, I want to eventually build a car one day. Okay. Now, how do I begin? So there are two ways in which you can think of it. Okay. First way is that first I build, say, skate, or maybe you know a, 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 a board or something, a board with wheels. Okay, and then I move to building say a cart, and then I move to say building a bicycle, and then I say move to building a motorcycle, and finally I move to building a car. Okay, so this is one approach. The other approach can be that I build uh, I build two wheels, and then I build a board, and then I motorize it, and then I build something. Which is like half of the engine, and all of that, and then finally I put the roof on the top of the car. So what I'm doing is that I'm basically building a bit of car every day. Okay. there are these two approaches of building a MVP. Now, and you can start thinking the initial point is say building two wheels and a boat. So, for example, that's the initial point. Now, if that's the initial point, then which of these two approaches do you think is the correct approach to building a MVP? Approach one, where we build a boat and then build a bicycle and then a motorcycle. Can let me try. Hello, am I audible better?
Yeah, now it is better, sir.
Okay. So yeah, so I was talking about two approaches there. Approach one was that you build a board and then you build a bicycle and then you build a motorcycle and then you build a car. Approach two is that there are again four stages, but you're building a board and then you're building like some part of the car, and then in the third stage you put more parts of the car, and then finally you build a full car. So, which approach do you think is the MVP approach, and which approach do you think is the better approach? Approach one or approach two? Please, write your options. Whoever thinks approach one is better, whoever thinks approach two is better. Am I audible to everyone? Okay, nice. So I'm awaiting. I'm awaiting your responses. Lot of the teaching which I do is it's very interactive. So if you want to be part of my sessions, please be extremely attentive and feel free to write anything which you feel like. I'm not getting any responses. I'm facing a few technical difficulties. That's why um, not able to revert quickly. Having said that, I talked about two approaches. I received one response from Mr. Sarvan Kumar Singh saying that the second approach is better, which is that in the 4 stages, what you do is that you build some part of the car. So one stage you build a board, then you build some more parts of the cars, then you put a roof of the car, and then finally you put engine, and the car is ready. Okay, and that was the second approach, and he said this is better. And the first approach was that you build a board, then you build a bicycle, then you build a motorcycle, and finally a car. Okay, now there are these two approaches. Now this is where the concept of MVP starts to become very interesting. Okay, actually MVP concept is all about the first approach, not the second approach, and I'll tell you how. And that's where you'll start appreciating the beauty of MVP. MVP is at all points of time, it should be a functional product. So when I'm talking about the first approach, all the 4 stages, they are functional in nature. Okay, so a board is functional, you can walk on a board. A bicycle is functional, you can ride a bicycle, go to your office or whatever. A motorcycle, you can go faster, and finally a car, you can be even more comfortable. So all the 4 stages, you're making a product which is a functional product. Okay, and that's the operative word here. That building a functional product is the key, and that's what you should kind of focus on, right? In the second approach, see what is happening. Post the board stage, actually it was not even board, it was just 2 wheels. It was, till the time you're able to build the car, okay, you can't do anything with that product, right? So the product is at all points of time till it is like finally complete, it remains an incomplete product. So because it remains an incomplete product, what does it do? Between the difference between approach 1 and approach 2, what does it do? What it does is that there is no revenue which comes. Nobody can use the product, no revenue comes out of it. So if you're trying to build, say, a car startup, then you need to you need to hire all the people, put in all the machinery, everything, and you need to wait till the final product is ready. Okay, and by that time, 2 things may happen. First thing can happen, that the car which you were thinking to build, somebody might have built even better car, and hence you may be out of the market. Or secondly, you may just run out of money. So there are these 2 big challenges which can happen. Okay, and that's where the key is. That's where the interesting bit is, that once you're thinking about an MVP, the thought is to make a minimum viable product which should be functional quickly, which you should be able to market and test quickly, and which should have the potential to generate some kind of revenue fee. If it fills all these buckets, then it becomes an MVP. If it does not fill all these buckets, then what it will become? It will become a very costly exercise, which is like a government kind of an exercise. That we will do something when everything is perfect. When everything is perfect, then you are not making a startup. What you're doing is that you're basically creating a lot of costs for yourself. And if you create a lot of costs for yourself, the chances of your startup or your this thing failing becomes that much more. Okay, so this is something which I wanted all of you to kind of remember when you think of MVP in general. Okay, from a definitional point of view, an MVP is a basic launchable version of the product that support must-have features which should define its value proposition. It is basically created with an intent to enable faster time to market, attract early adopters, and achieve product market fit from very early on. That's the whole idea. With this MVP approach, what you can do is you can make an early market entry, enable early testing of the idea with the users, with actual users basically, and you can work effectively towards developing a full-fledged product. Okay, so when you are thinking of an MVP, these are the three kind of big advantages of the whole process. Now, when you are thinking of an MVP, you are thinking about basically four stages. Okay, uh, first stage is the functional. That means whatever you are building, it should do, at least some part of its job. Okay, unlike the example in which at almost till the end, the product was not doing anything and it was not able to do it, so it was not functional. Okay, that's the first job, which is the functional part of the job. The second part is reliable. That the product you should be able to rely on the product. You should be able to go to a product. You should be able to it should not break down. So if you're say building a board, then board should be sturdy enough that it should be able to take your weight. If you're building a bicycle, then bicycle should not get puncture very frequently, for example. Okay, or it should not have parts which once they when they kind of go away, you lose some part. It should be easily available, all of them. Thirdly, it should be usable. So functional, reliable, usable, and finally, you get to the stage of emotional design. Now, what is emotional design? This is very interesting. Okay, so there is this Maruti car, and then there is this Hyundai car, and then you have got Mercedes and Audi, and so on and so on. All of these cars do the job of taking you from one place to the other pretty efficiently. Okay, but where you differ, so somebody would love a BMW, somebody would love an Audi, somebody would go for a Maruti because of reasons which are beyond functional, usable, and reliable. Okay, the reasons are more emotional, more feel, more touch based reasons. Okay, so when you are developing an MVP, the lowest layer is the functional. Once you achieve the function, then you put reliability on top. When you achieve reliability, then you put usability on top. And when you achieve usability, then you start building for something called user interface and user experience, that how one person feels about it. Okay, so that's the kind of minimum viable product approach. And once you do that, then you start uh, hitting your business goals. So what will be like the business benefits of building an MVP? The business benefits will be focus, in the development process. Um, we should always focus on building the core first. Okay, that what is the core idea, and if you're able to build the core, then you basically test out whether that core is workable or not. Okay, for example, say when Amazon started as a store for books. Okay, now books right now will be one of the smallest components in the whole Amazon ecosystem. As in all the things which they sell, books will not be contributing more than 1% of their revenue, or maybe less than 1% of their revenue. Okay, most of their revenue comes from things like fashion, electronics, Amazon Web Services, their products. There are a lot of other things from where their revenue comes from. Books is a very small one. However, when Jeff Bezos started Amazon, how he started was very simple. He started with books, because what he was testing out was the core, whether a product or a service can be sold online or not. So once he was able to crack this idea that a product or service can be sold online, then you can extend that core idea to anything and everything. And if you extend that core idea to anything and everything, then you are able to sell fashion, electronics, you name it, basically. So that's where the whole point, to focus and build these. So this becomes one of the key business benefits of building an MVP. The second is early testing opportunity. Whatever you are building, you are able to test it out very early in the market. Okay, and you can get a feedback. Say suppose there was no market for books. Say for example, okay, if there was no market for books, then possibly Amazon would have died early on, and Jeff Bezos would have got a job, or would have moved into another business, because he would have tested the core idea that it is very difficult to sell things online, or people do not want to purchase online, right? So because people do not want to purchase online, it's pointless to do that. Now, so it gives you a very, very important thing, which is testing the core idea, whether it will work. And otherwise, you can go the whole hog of the approach to which I talked about, non-MVP approach. That means you actually build a platform for selling everything, and then you arrange everything, and you have got all of sellers and all that, and then you realize after an effort of 4 or 5 years that this thing doesn't work, which happens with so many projects, and then a lot of money goes down the drain, a lot of time goes down the drain. Okay. Third thing is user feedback. So when you are building a product, what you do is that you build something functional, as I talked to you about, something functional and functional, reliable, usable, emotional. You build this. Now, when you build this, what happens is that you're able to gain user feedback and user intelligence. When people interact with your data, people interact with your product, what they start giving is that they start giving you lot of opportunity to see their data, how they're interacting with the product. They start giving you some very valuable, useful feedback as to yeah, there are some questions also coming. I will try to tackle them. The intent is that you are able to get a lot of user feedback, and because of user feedback, one can essentially keep improving the product. And somebody has written, Bharvi has written that we can avoid risks. Very important, and this is the point which I'm talking about. MVPs help in minimizing risk of a new startup, of a new product launch. Once you build especially when the product is extremely experimental in nature, then MVPs are extremely essential. Okay, and they can minimize business risk, time risk, all of that. Okay. So Prateek Tavre has written, what is product development cycle? I will come to this. This is something which I will be covering. And any real-time example for MVP? Yes. So a good real-time example, Mr. G. Palanivel, is Amazon. So Amazon, as I was talking about, Amazon started as a bookseller, online bookseller. And slowly it started mastering the concept of customer excellence on selling products and services through digital platform. That's what it started mastering. And when slowly they started mastering it, then what they were able to do, as I told you in the first example, you build a board, and then you build a bicycle and a motorcycle and a car. So if you see, Amazon is actually selling all of these now, because what they were able to understand was that in an online platform, it is actually possible to sell all of them. So they built an online platform and they started selling all of them. But having said that, they started with an example of the kind of first product. I'll give you another good example, okay, so that you get the concept of this MVP more clearly. When Facebook started, so Facebook, a lot of you would have seen the movie Social Network, but to those who have not, they may not know that Facebook was not started for the purpose it is doing the work now. Okay, it wasn't started for that purpose. It was started because they wanted to the guy wanted to essentially connect students from different colleges. So it was an inter-college network. So people from Stanford could make a profile and connect with students from Harvard. So for example, that's the whole idea. And people from Harvard could go to Princeton, and Princeton could, so all of that. The idea was, it was an inter-college network. It wasn't meant to be a network which was open for all. So you basically required an email ID, which will be a college email ID. to log in. Not like somebody could not log in with their generic Yahoo IDs to Facebook initially. And once they tested, now this is where the beauty of MVP is. So because it was started, um, as a college network, Mark Zuckerberg and his team, they were able to remove all these differences, all the challenges which came in the beginning. And because they were able to remove all these challenges, it became fairly simple for them to move to the next stage. Okay. And because you could kind of move to the next stage, then you expand it and you start building a platform which is usable for everyone. Now imagine, had he thought that, what, my vision is to create a social network where every person, be it a kid or be it like an octogenarian, everybody can come and operate it at same point. Had he thought with this vision, would he have been able to do it from a college dorm? He would not have been able to, because to fulfill that kind of a vision, you require a lot of time and you require a lot of money. And if you go with that vision, probably that would never have happened. So how he started was build a college network first, expand it to a lot of colleges, then open it slowly to other communities, and then one country, US, and then open it to a lot of other countries, and then keep building on that. Bring in features like the wall, which is the most used feature. If you see Facebook, the most used feature is the constant news feed of your friends, your family, which you get. Now that feature was introduced much later. Initially, it was a platform which could only allow you to build a profile and connect with another profile. That was the only job. This feature, the wall, which is the most used feature, was introduced much later. And because of that feature, you actually spend a lot of time on Facebook. Not only that, because of that feature, what happened was that you could essentially advertise. Facebook could earn some revenue finally. Otherwise, there was no way in which Facebook could have have revenue. So I think from a MVP standpoint, I think these are two very notable examples. I can go on and on about MVPs, but the whole idea is that almost every successful company has gone through the stages of the MVP to minimize risk, to gather user intelligence. There is a very important thing also which is called market validation. Okay, now once you want to launch something very aspirational, you want to launch. Okay, you have, say, suppose you have an idea, for example, that I want to build a spacecraft which will take people to moon. Say, for example, that's the idea. Okay, so what will be an MVP for that, and why it is important? Say, suppose I'm building a spacecraft which can take somebody to moon. Okay, and it is for commercial purposes. So somebody can pay a small fee, and then sit on my spacecraft, and I'll take him to moon and then bring him back. That's the idea. Now, if that's the idea, then what is happening? I need to first understand whether people will be willing to, pay for it. Okay, I need to understand. Up now, building something till the moon, very difficult. So what I do is, first I make a smaller rocket which takes you to the space. Okay, like one notch below. So if somebody is willing to go to space and is willing to pay for it, I think I've done a good job. Okay, I can make it even smaller. I can take not to the space, but say till 1,000 meters above, or 2,000 meters above sea level. I'll take him to that and then bring him back. Let's see how people react to that, and so on and so forth. So what you do is that you can decide what will be a good MVP for you, where you get something called market validation, and that becomes extremely kind of critical. Feel free to keep bringing your questions, everyone. Okay, because I'll be happy to kind of answer. The other things which I already talked about, that once you do this, it takes much less time to develop the final product, and at all points of time you kind of get a revenue potential. you are and this becomes very very uh, budget friendly. Okay, there's also one very important thing, that startups that scale up properly, they normally grow multiple times faster than startups which do not grow properly. Okay, so it is like a baby, if you see carefully. Okay, so a baby, when he's small, he has got small hands. Okay, but it is not as if that the baby has got only, when the baby is born, it has got only a head. That doesn't happen. Okay, a baby has got a head, it has got hands, it has got legs. Okay, but it is like small, and everything is small small, and his mind is also small, he's not able to speak properly, and all of that. But as the growth begins, the hands become bigger, the kind of legs become bigger, the mind becomes bigger, and so on and so forth. So, and this is very important for the natural growth. Say for example, if we do it in a manner where the head was there, and then slowly you get one hand, and then you get the second hand, and then you get a kind of third, a leg, and another leg, and so on and so forth. So that will be a very unnatural way of development also, in that sense, right? Which may not be so. The research has shown that startups which grow, in a more natural manner, which keep on building, useful products on top of useful products, they're more likely to succeed, and have better and faster growth rates compared to the startups which do not follow kind of this approach. One of the things there is that, from a thought process perspective, one needs to have a clear need. uh, Once you have identified a clear need, one research, you can do research, you can observe, you can go on to prioritizing insights, and finally, you can hypothesize about the first product, and do this hypothesis process again and again. You move to the next stage where you build something, you take feedback, you incorporate new ideas, and you keep iterating on this cycle. Okay, the reason for beginning an MVP needs to be a very very clear need. So from one approach can be that you apply design thinking, you apply lean user experience, and you apply an agile methodology. And when you do all these three, you create a successful kind of MVP. Okay. Now, now comes somebody talked to me about cycle. So let me take you through this. We have got around 13-14 minutes. So I'll try to capture this aspect in as much detail in this limited time. The first things is, as I talked about when I was talking about the idea stage, the first thing is that you should start with some kind of a market research. A product is not made for your own whims and fancies. A product is made for the market. So there needs to be a need which you should be able to tackle, which you should be able to deliver and fulfill through your product. And if you do that, it your the whole point of having a product becomes important. So the first thing is a S. Start with market research. Okay. The second thing which comes is an I, which is ideate on value addition. Okay. So says if you're starting with in fact, this is very interesting. The whole idea of iPhone started with an iPod. So initially, this whole music shuffle thing was built. You could listen to music, and which then MVP has got these beautiful various forms to it. But yeah, let me come back. The whole The whole point is start with market research, do some market research, understand what is needed, what people need, what is already available. Can you build something which is truly differentiated and yet easy to make? Okay. The second important part is, the first part is S, the second part is I, which is ideate on value addition. What kind of values you can, what kind of value addition you can, like in the case of an iPhone. Okay. It was the first phone which was a truly nice touch phone. Before that, there used to be Blackberries, which used to contain some kind of a keyboard, and it was thought that it is not possible to build a product without some kind of a what you call some kind of a touch or some kind of an input keyboard. It was not possible, and nobody was Nokia actually had built a prototype before iPhone, but they did not launch it properly, and they thought that it will be, people will not like it, and so on and so forth. However, Steve Jobs was very clear that his product needs to be a truly smart phone, and which should completely operate with touch. So even the keyboard should operate through touch. That was the core thought, right? And that was a value addition which was not available on any high-end smartphone at that point of time, and that gave him this whole thing about um, how he can essentially build the product properly. The third step three becomes very important, which is M. So SIM is map out user flow. Okay. Now the whole idea is that how a person who is going to use your product, okay, he's going to actually use it, in what ways, and have you thought about whether when he has the need, he loves the differentiation which you have put in, how he's going to use it? Is he going to get um, value out of money, value out of the time put into your product, or put into your app? Say you're building an app, say for example. Okay, so if you're building an app, does he find value in that? No, that becomes extremely critical. So M is map out user flow. Okay, so S is start with market research. I is ideate on different value additions. Third becomes map out user flows. Okay. Uh, the fourth thing becomes prioritize which is P. Prioritize MVP features. Which feature do you want to include in the first phase? Which features are possible within your budget? So, for example, you've thought through everything. You've thought through your user flows. You've thought through market research, everything. Okay, but you're not clear about which particular features the customer is going to need most, which is going to make you stand out in the crowd. Now, this is very important. I have been repeatedly telling you the concept of MVP is to build something which is functional at all stages. It's the most important thing. If you're not got something functional at all stages, what you're doing is you're building a very long serial assembly line process, which will take a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort for you uh, to to build, and will increase that much more businesses. So the important thing is prioritize your MVP features, which is the P, and um, finally, L is launch the MVP. Now, there is a saying that if you become very, if we become very successful, say for example, you know, if you're not embarrassed about the first product, then you have essentially not gone into MVP at all. Okay, this is very critical. So a lot of people, they keep delaying the launch. A lot of people, they just keep delaying the launch all the time. Okay. And because they keep delaying the launch, it becomes they either never launch, or they have invested a very significant time and energy at the in the whole process. Okay. A significant time, energy in the whole process, which becomes which is against the whole idea of an MVP. So after SIMP, you should always launch the product. You should always you should and this is as important as to not be afraid for a launch. Okay. Like, a lot of you might be having ideas about a great app. Say, for example, an app which can teach better, or an app which can take away technical difficulties from a Zoom, something like that, right? An app which can work on unstable what you call internet connections. Okay. So on and so forth, right? But a lot of you will be afraid to launch it. You may have thought of, as I told you, you've done market research, you've ideated your differentiation, you've mapped out user flows, you've prioritized your first, this is something which I definitely want to give, people are going to love it, all great. And finally, when it comes to launching, you develop cold feet, that whether should I launch it, whether should I expose myself to the world. Okay. But I think that's where you need to really see it as a part of MVP product development cycle, that try and launch the product as fast as you can. Okay. And I'll give you a very interesting suggestion. After I finish the lecture, it is possible to see the first websites of Google, Facebook, Amazon, Zappos. Just go and see their first websites, and you will be amazed to see how embarrassing those first websites are, how embarrassing the first web apps are. All of this is available in web archives. Okay. And look what, despite having such a poor website in the beginning, or such a poor app in the beginning, look where they are. Okay. So it's very important that in the MVP journey is to actually launch. Okay. Finally, you should exercise, build, measure, and learn. Okay. So what you're doing is that you are essentially putting yourself into this constant iterative cycle. Okay. Constant iterative cycle of build, measure, and learn. Okay. So you keep building, you keep measuring, and you keep learning, and you again keep building. Okay. So exercise, build, measure, and learn, which is the last part of the MVP product development cycle. Now, once you exercise these 5 things together, then it becomes SIMPLE, which is simple. So MVP, as I always talk about, it's very simple. If you follow this methodology, you will be able to create an app, or a product, or a website, or anything actually, which you think can produce an impact, or become the next unicorn. That becomes possible, right? I've got 4 minutes left. I have, it became more of a training session from my side rather than the interactive thing, which I like. But happy to take any questions which you may have in these last 4 minutes, and then we will conclude.
Participants, if you have any questions, please raise your hand. We will unmute yourself.
I'm not able to hear properly. If you can write it in the chat box, everyone will be able to read it, and I'll also be able to answer it. So anybody who has got any question, you can just write it in the chat window, and I'll be kind of happy to answer. But if there are no questions, then
Sir, I hope everyone is very clear actually. So there is one question from.
Is it necessary for all products to have suggest books or sites for further studies? Okay, suggest books or sites. I will share some books and sites with Anand, and he can reach out to you. Okay. Is it necessary for all products to have MVP? It's a great question, actually. Is it necessary for all products to have MVP? If you have something which is how should I answer this? This is a very interesting question. Actually, let me attempt answering it. The whole idea is that if you build an MVP and you have got an idea which is truly differentiated, truly okay, let me attempt this with an example. There is this there used to be this airline called Concorde. Concorde was the first airline which was a supersonic passenger jet. Okay, so what you can do is that you can take an aircraft from London to New York, and you can reach London to New York really fast. Okay, because it is supersonic. The passenger flights are not supersonic. So the technology, and this was developed way back, 30, 40 years back. The technology was ahead of its time. Okay. But the whole thing was very costly. Okay. Building that technology, the passenger fare was very costly, and so on and so forth. Finally, what happened that particular Concorde aircraft, and you can search after this lecture more on this, it was grounded and it is no longer available. So that technology, that beautiful technology, was lost. Okay, and then they put in a lot of money in building the product, taking people from one place to the other, and so on and so forth. Okay, but but the whole point was that it had to be grounded. So if you ask me this question, I would actually say that every product, every path-breaking idea should try and do an MVP first. If you see that MVPs almost always result into continuous process. Having said that, there is also another methodology which has now come in, which is called RAT. So yeah. So there is a competing methodology which has come in, but yeah, most products should follow a process of continuous development. Okay, it's kind of time now. I thank you so much to all of you for inviting me over, and in hindsight,
there is one more question, sir. Just one question.
Which make things relevant, but being at helm, why company fail to adopt changes like Nokia, but Samsung picked it rightly. Very, very interesting. Anand, you've asked a great question.
No, it was asked by someone else actually. They sent
okay.
Message.
So, so two things there. Okay. And your question is actually a beautiful question. I'll repeat it for everyone. In hindsight, it seems easy to incorporate change, which make things relevant. But being at helm, why companies fail to adapt changes? Okay. Like Nokia, but Samsung, and so on and so forth. Now, so the answer to this is, the bigger you grow, the lesser your appetite to take risk becomes. So the answer of this thing lies in the ability of a company to take risks. Because if you take a risk and it doesn't work out, okay, what you do is you basically rock all your reputation. So you built, say for example, Nokia built a reputation that it was producing great feature phones. Okay, now you try to build a smartphone and it doesn't work out and people hate it. Okay, what you do is you basically impact the sales of the feature phone also. Because you're impacting the sales of the feature phone, you as the CEO of the company, you're thinking, should I go for such an extraordinary launch? So should I do that? Right? So the answer to this is that in hindsight, it looks good. But when I'm making this decision, and I'm putting a new product and I'm saying that, you know what, I will not even make feature phones. So from today onwards, I'm betting all my money on smartphones. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm foregoing all the revenue of the smartphone. All the revenue of the feature phone in view of the touch phone, or the smartphone which I'm launching. And that's why a lot of companies fail to take that risk. Whereas a new company, okay, like Apple was into computer business earlier. They decided to come into this. For them, when they were launching, they had to produce something which was exceptionally good. So Apple could take that chance because they had nothing to lose. They were bringing something, while for Nokia it was very difficult to do. So for bigger companies, the risk is the answer. The ability of the top management of the company to believe in a certain kind of vision, to believe in their conviction, and to take that kind of risk. That's the answer. But I think it was a beautiful concluding question, Anand. Thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. It was a very wonderful and a very informative session. I would like to thank you for sharing your invaluable time with us. And I also wish to express your sincere gratitude for giving an excellent coverage on today's topic. As you said, if we follow this simple strategy, I think we'll be a master in it. So
Absolutely.
Thank you for the simple but a powerful lecture. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Maybe in future we would like to invite you for a physical lecture as well. So
Most certainly, I would love that.
Hoping for that. Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. And thank you all. Feedback link has been posted in the chat window, and we'll meet you all in tomorrow's topic at the 11 a.m. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, sir.